So I'm out in Calderdale again, and it's now early September. We've finally had some reasonable rain, not a lot, but enough to wet the ground anyway. So we've come out into these lovely mixed woods, which we've got some deciduous trees, some conifers. So I'm going to see what is around. So here's the first find of the day. This is Dyer's mazegill, phaeollus schweinitzii, if I'm pronouncing that right. A polypore, which grows at the base of conifers, in this case a dead larch. There's a little one there as well. We've got this bright yellow, sort of fuzzy looking surface. They're a bit spongy when they're this size on the surface, but quite firm deeper further in. And they turn browner as they get older. It's not an edible mushroom, but it's called Dyer's mazegill because it can be used as a natural dye. Come and have a look at this beast. This is one of the huge bracket fungi that we get in the UK, very commonly growing from trees. A ganoderma species. This one's probably Ganoderma applanatum, the artist bracket. As you can see, they get very big, and it's very bad news for the tree. I think this is a sycamore tree because they cause rot in the wood, which eventually can make the tree fall down. I can't really see underneath this one, but they have this brown upper surface which gets covered in the brown spores, but then underneath they're white, and you can actually draw on them, which is why they're called artist brackets. I'm not expecting to find masses of fungi today. It has been very dry, and although we've had some rain, it's not really enough to wet the ground properly. These woods usually start to produce more a wee bit later in the year. But what this site is great for is that as well as having the forest, it's also got some good grazed grassland, which is excellent habitat for waxcaps. So again, it's a little bit early maybe for them, but the first ones are beginning to show, so I'm hoping we might find some of those today as well, and be able to show you those. So let's go on and see what we find. Well, here's another species. This one sadly very much past it. When I first saw them I thought they were likely to be oyster mushrooms, but actually, unless the gills have just been eaten off them, I think these are, and looking at the dark base to the stem there, I think these are actually very small and very past it dryad saddles. The dark base of the stem there suggests that it's clearly far too gone to eat, and it's difficult to be absolutely sure of the identity when they're so rotten. But I will remember this branch and come back next year to look again a bit earlier. Here's the fourth species of the day, very, very common around here. This is an earthball, a scleroderma species. It has no stalk, it's just a ball on the ground, and they could look quite like puffballs, except they tend to have this sort of more cracked yellowy brown surface. All the puffballs in the UK are edible, but earthballs like this are definitely not. You can tell it's an earthball because if we cut it in half with my little knife here, it's black inside. An edible puffball will always be completely snow white through the centre. Something's got these geese's knickers in a twist. There's loads of them here. And they're being very noisy right now. Maybe it's me. Moving off fungi for a moment to this plant. This is a very, 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 very common plant. called Himalayan balsam, which lots of you will have heard of. It's not native to the UK, and it's horrendously invasive because of the seed pods which form from these pretty pink flowers which are here. And I'm not going to show you, but they explode when touched. When they're ripe, they pop and scatter the seeds everywhere, which is one of the reasons why they're so invasive. And they for various reasons they can cause problems on in forests and riverbanks, but all parts of the plant are edible. The leaves, when they're very young, when they're first shooting out the ground, are edible. The flowers are edible, and you can also use the flowers to flavour and colour gin. And apparently when you add tonic to Himalayan balsam infused gin, the gin starts pink and then turns blue. So I need to try that sometime. But they're edible. And the seeds, here's one which is a bit more ripe. The seeds inside these pods are actually very tasty as well. They've got a nice nutty flavour, and if you're careful and grab the seed in your hand, you can collect the seeds so they don't fall on the ground. And when they're black like this, or even when they're white, but especially when they're black like this, they have a nice nutty flavour that makes a tasty snack. These videos are really just to share what I find around the woods in Calderdale. They're certainly not meant to be a definitive guide to what's safe and what's not safe to eat. When it comes to foraging for mushrooms and plants, the most important thing is to be absolutely sure of the identity of what you're picking. So check multiple sources, don't just rely on one. There are great websites online. Wild Food UK, First Nature websites for UK foraging are both excellent. And there's lots of good, reliable books out there. What you mustn't do though is you mustn't use apps, because they're notoriously inaccurate, and they can most definitely identify deadly species as edible species. Another russula, this time one with a yellowish cap. Again, you can do a nibble and spit. That one's slightly hot in flavour, but not very. So this one may well be the ochre brittlegill, russula ochroleuca, which is very common. Although with russulas they are quite difficult to tell apart. They can be quite variable in cap colour. Another really important point to remember when it comes to identifying fungi, and plants for that matter, is it's really important to look at all the features. A lot of people worry, especially with fungi, that they shouldn't touch them in case they're harmful, but there's absolutely no fungi which are dangerous to touch. Even the most deadly fungi have to be ingested to cause harm, even death caps and destroying angels. So they're all absolutely safe to touch, and it doesn't harm the fungus at all, because the majority of the fungal organism is the mycelium, which are in the ground or the tree or the growing medium. The fungus, the mushroom that you see, is just the fruiting body, so it's like picking an apple off a tree essentially. Plants, on the other hand, you have to be much more careful with. There are, first off, a lot more potentially deadly plants than there are fungi, and also there are plenty of plants which can harm you just by touching them, from the mild to like nettle stings and bramble scratches, to the very severe like the rash that you might get, that you would get if you touched giant hogweed. So really they require a lot more caution than fungi do in the whole, when it comes to looking at them and inspecting them. But like I said before, the most important thing, especially if you're thinking about eating, is that you have to be absolutely 100% confident of the identification before you put anything in your mouth. And never munch on a hunch, as they say. This is the sort of habitat that the waxcaps love. It's grassy and mossy. The sheep graze it, but it won't be otherwise treated with fertilisers or anything like that, which is what they absolutely hate. So here's the first reasonable edible mushroom of the day. This is a bolete. It's got pores underneath rather than gills, and it's a leccinum species. You can tell because it's got these little sort of speckles in the stem, what's called floccules. So if I pick it right at the base, sorry about my camera work there. As you can see, it's already been quite munched by slugs. There are the pores. I'm just going to pause the camera. I've got my knife out. I'm going to cut this one because it's really important when identifying these. Oh, they're very spongy. That's one of the problems with these leccinum species of mushrooms. They do tend to be quite spongy. You have to cut it down to the base and see what happens. In particular, we're looking for any blue colour staining. Which I'm not seeing in this one. We are near birch, and I think there's an aspen nearby as well. But I think this is a brown birch bolete, leccinum scabrum, because there's no notable colour change in this flesh. Well, here's a lovely find. This is the first waxcap that I've found this season, and it's one of the absolute beautiful ones. This is a Ballerina waxcap, it's called, which has this very pink cap that splays out to the side and lifts up with a white stem underneath. They start off like a little conical cap, which then opens up like this. I'm nearly back at the car now, but here's one last cluster of mushrooms, which are absolutely everywhere in the autumn, in woodland all over Britain. These bright yellow mushrooms are sulphur tufts, which aren't edible, but they're certainly bright and colourful, and there's usually hundreds of them. The interesting thing about sulphur tufts is if you come out after dark with a UV torch, they glow in the dark, which is pretty cool to see. Here we are. Got some nice interesting finds today from the dyer's mazegills, the artist bracket, the russulas, the brown birch bolete, but my absolute favourite from the day was that beautiful Ballerina waxcap that we found near the end there. There will be a lot more of those and similar waxcaps coming up in the next couple of months. So if you want to see a video of those, please remember to subscribe and watch out for more videos.